You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it's Monday. It's May 19th, 2025. Thank you for joining us here at CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. And you can follow me on X at CorsiJerome1, still being shadow banned on all social media, including X. Thank you very much, Elon Musk. And you can see me also on Substack at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. And we're posting there almost every week, almost every day now. And certainly it's gaining following, and I'm very appreciative. Thank you for all who have subscribed. And please take a look at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Now, we've got quite a bit of news today to cover. I want to start with Joe Biden and his health. We're going to talk a lot today about the coming investigation of Russian collusion by the FBI and John Brennan, a lot on John Brennan today. And then we'll cover Moody's and the downgrade of the U.S. with this big bill passing through committee last night and now going to go for a vote in the House and then in the Senate. It seems increasingly likely this bill will be passed, although it's still not certain. So let's start out with Joe Biden. And so what we had on last weekend, Friday, is we had the release of this interview with the her in the prosecutor's office, looking, trying to determine whether Biden had mishandled classified information. And then, of course, on top of that, with the news cycle to manage it with fake news, they suddenly announced that Biden has very aggressive prostate cancer, although Biden had made a slip up and announced that he had cancer. I think in 2022, one of his rambling speeches about Delaware, and his mind was going all over the place. He said Delaware had cancer because of certain policies in Delaware, and he had it too. And well, Biden also made up so many things about himself. How could you tell if that was true or not at the time? But now, on top of the bad news, in fact, devastating news of Biden, how bad he sounded before the prosecutors, which is really pathetic. And it intensifies the cover-up issue. By the way, Jake Tapper, or whatever you want to call this guy, this nutcase, right-winger, left-winger, the nutcase left-winger. I'm supposed to be the nutcase right-winger. That's what I'm the conspiracy theorist, remember? Okay, so Tapper actually said that it was a massive cover-up of Biden's incompetence, which was obvious even in 2020, his mental slippage, and it hidden. And they have to lead this guy around with like you lead a child around with holding on to him with a string so he knows where to go, or you have to have a tether on him so he doesn't wander off until you give him an ice cream cone. Then he can go after little girls, snipping their hair. The pedophilia and among the elite in America is shocking and very frightening. Okay, so let's listen to this jerk, Biden, before the prosecutor. Chris, you got a clip? Let's play it.
So during this time when we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden.
That's the prosecutor asking him a question.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you acted?
Where did he keep these papers, these classified papers?
Well, I don't know. This is what?
He doesn't know. He says this was 2017?
2017, 18, that period.
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is.
Yeah, he's now going to say when his son was dying. Of course, he gets all the dates wrong. And we're having a little breakup of this tape, but he's bumbling his way through. He can't remember dates. He doesn't know anything. He sounds like he's completely incompetent. I think it's struggling too much, Chris. I don't think we're
Or
going to
is
be able to
not-
hear much of this clip. So that's when you listen to it, you'll see that the Biden.
Anyway, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. That's not a mean thing to say, but he just thought that she had a better shot.
Okay, so it's confusing when he left the Senate, and
So I
in
hadn't-
2016
I hadn't-
when Obama preferred Hillary to him, and he's got all of his dates mixed up. He's completely incoherent. The guy needs to be put in a home or taken care of. Instead, they keep letting him give speeches. The Democrats are appalled by Biden because he's another element destroying the party. And the Democratic Party has been a communist party for some time, and now it's just become a traitorous and treasonous party. The Democrats hate the United States, and they're committing suicide fast. They're digging their own grave, and the last comments are that President Trump is ready to hand them a shovel, make sure they can dig it faster. Democrats are disgraceful. And so you just let AOC and Maxine Waters, just let them talk. And they can talk about having, they don't know what a woman is. They want to sexually mutilate our children in school without the parents having a word in it before the children reach the age of puberty. Don't even know what their gender is. Why are you confusing our children about their gender? Why don't you jerks, Democrats, do something about the pedophilia that you encouraged? The deal that Biden made with Honduras to open the border with with the Pope and McCarrick, this archbishop from Washington who was sleeping with seminarians while he was buggering altar boys. So he's a homosexual pedophile, which is what the Catholic Church has become. Okay, and unfortunately, it's become a homosexual organization. And we'll see how the current new Pope does. He, of course, appalled the LGBT left by saying that a family was a union between a man and a woman to procreate children. Of course, the LGBT rainbow crowd lost their minds, and the gay pride people decided that they would have to hold a gay pride event all through our State Department offices. So that's the kind of basic nonsense we have going on with the Democratic Party. All right, now I want to shift gears here and to go on to a story that is developing. Gateway Pundit is covering it, saying that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were on Maria Bartiromo's Fox News show on Sunday, and they're talking about their efforts to clean up the Department of Justice. Of course, the backstory here is that the Patel and Bongino are under some degree of criticism. What are they doing? We're not getting any prosecutions. We're getting a lot of talk. So we had more talk. Now, what they're saying is that Kash Patel, who was the former House Intel Chairman Devin Nunes's top deputy for years, who helped to blow open the Spygate and Russiagate stories, and he wrote a book on Democratic criminals. I have a copy of it here. And what they announced was that the FBI has uncovered a trove of hidden Russiagate documents that they said they're going to release soon. So what Patel said, he said, I was the lead Russiagate investor for the House Intelligence Committee. I'm telling you and the American people that we have found material and information and people who wanted to hide it from the world since we got in these seats. That's what he said on Sunday Morning Futures. And then they ripped into FBI James Comey, former director, and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe for, quote, lying to federal courts, hiding evidence, and weaponizing the FBI against political opponents. Quote, as much as we know about Crossfire Hurricane, he and I, Bongino and I, found out more last week, Patel said. We're about to see a wave of transparency. Just give us a week or two. Patel said that Comey, McCabe, and Peter Strzok, among others, committed multiple crimes, including intentionally lying to a federal court, rigging a presidential election, using taxpayer dollars, likely illegally, to fund their operation, and hiding documents from Congress. Okay, now those are strong statements. And I think that they're all true, and I think that it needs to be brought out. So the FBI and the Department of Justice under Obama can be seen as a corrupt criminal organization that protected pedophiles, opened the border to the drug trade, permitted banks like TD Bank to engage in money laundering. TD Bank just, I believe, had a $3 billion fine. I read the plea deal this morning. They took a plea deal and they admitted to money laundering. There's much more in this story developing. And what they were doing is they were not only money laundering with Act Blue, they were money laundering to get drug and pedophile money from the border into TD Bank, and they were funneling it in these mortgages that people associated with the Democratic Party and Act Blue got on a house worth $150,000. They get $1 million mortgage on it. That's how they got the money out of the bank and into the coffers of Act Blue to fund the non-governmental organizations. We've got the data on it, and it's been presented already to Ed Martin when he was at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. Now, Ed Martin was not confirmed, and so he was moved over to the Department of Justice and is in charge of weaponization by the Democrats. And there going to be a lot of people going to prison on the Democratic side if Patel and Bongino have the guts to do it. We'll find out soon. But we know that there's a lot of crimes that have been committed, and I was a victim of this. They wanted to put me in prison for the rest of my life unless I had a tie to Julian Assange, which I did not have. I was going to take a plea deal and said I lied, did have a tie to Assange, which would have been the last step in the Russian collusion argument of the Mueller investigation. I told them to go to hell, take that plea deal and shove it. And they did not indict me. They said, you guys are the criminals. I wrote a book on it called Silent No More. And I can't wait for this to become more of a topic again, because I intend to release the information that I've had again. And I'm going to do some quotes here from this book, Coup d'etat, because I charge that the Crossfire Hurricane operation was an Obama coup d'etat against Trump for the 2016 election. And this book is going to be, I believe we're going to get a documentary done on this entire subject. And the nation's going to be shocked. There's an article out today on Brennan. Roger Stone has it on his blog, stonezone.com. And it's, who is John Brennan and why should he be charged with treason? Okay, so Stone writes, former CIA Director John Brennan says he's now appalled that the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's cleaning house in the National Security Agency and firing those who have been caught leaking or undermining Trump's anti-war policies. If you want to understand who Brennan is, perhaps you are the one who should be appalled. Well, Brennan's the one who, shaking in his boots, this guy's going to be charged with treason. If anything, if there's justice in America, he'll be charged with treason and hung. This guy is a communist, voted for Gus Hall. He headed the Communist Party USA when Brennan was a young man. Okay, so Stone writes, former CIA Director John Brennan is more culpable than perhaps anyone in the genesis of Russiagate. Even though he was fired immediately by President Trump upon Trump's arrival in the White House, Brennan sowed the seeds of Trump's destruction behind the scenes throughout his campaign and during the presidential election. That's including 2024. Brennan's subversive stain permeated through Trump's 4-year term and caused immeasurable damage. Okay, Stone continues. Brennan was aware the infamous Steel Dossier was used to justify the FISA warrants to spy on Trump campaign staffers. His claim that Russian intelligence hacked Democratic National Committee computer servers was never proven and is almost certainly false. It's 100% false. Could not have happened. Brennan's a liar. And there's no deep state without fake news. And the fake news parroted Michael Isikoff, the Russian collusion story, for years. Okay, they all knew it was complete bullshit and that they did it. Okay, so Brennan was, I think, central to the Russian collusion story. Read one more paragraph from Stone, Roger Stone. The Durham report provided demonstrable evidence that Brennan briefed then President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden about the Steel Dossier, fully aware that Hillary Clinton's campaign plotted to use it to frame Trump as a puppet of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Brennan also shamefully set up 24 Trump advisors for surveillance by the corrupt U.S. intelligence apparatus, while also colluding with foreign intelligence to conduct the illicit, politically motivated spying operation. Okay, so Brennan was central. And I want to read you now a couple things from my book, what I wrote about Brennan, because, again, there's things that you don't know and were not really fully disclosed, except if you read the book. I knew about them, but again, the mainstream media never has reported on this. So in the book, I point out that the Steel Dossier was central to John Brennan's decision to create an interagency, what he called a fusion cell, in mid-2016. That's in the first year of the first Trump presidency, to investigate Russian interference in the presidential election. The highly secretive ad hoc group reported initially only to Obama. Group formerly known as the Fusion Cell produced a series of papers for the White House on Russian interference in the U.S. 2016 presidential election. Okay, now this is the lying basis for the Russian collusion, and it's Brennan giving Obama the information that I'm sure Obama asked for in order to go after Trump on this Russian collusion theory. Hillary devised this whole theory of Russian collusion after it was known that the Democratic Party computers, the Democratic National Committee, had been breached, and Assange had released in 2016 before the election occurred. Okay, so 2006, actually it was not, and the fusion cell was formed during the campaign. Sorry, Trump didn't take office until January 2017. So this fusion cell and Obama and Hillary were going after Trump even before the election on this Russian collusion theme, which then became the subject of the Mueller investigation, which until 2018 plagued the Trump presidency. And when finally John Brennan was, upstaged by the fact I wouldn't take the plea deal, they didn't have a tie to Assange, and there was no Russian collusion, they ended the investigation. Had I broken and taken the plea deal, by the way, it ruined my 32-year marriage. And today, 3 years after I was divorced by my wife, who had an affair with someone I brought from the United States from Argentina, married to one of her families, a great story. It ought to be Netflix. Well, today we have our mediation, first mediation on the divorce going into its third year. And marriage broke up over my being involved in politics and the FBI knocking on the door, and CNN parked outside my house for months waiting for me to be arrested, like Roger Stone. It didn't happen. I was not indicted. Okay, so this fusion cell, and I'm sure it's Hillary was hiding the fact that she had her private email server when she was Secretary of State, which was completely illegal. And I proved that Huma Abedin, her assistant, was taking Hillary's classified emails from that server that she should never have had. It was a complete crime to have that server, private server when she was Secretary of State. She should have only been using government servers. Okay, Huma Abedin was publishing those documents from Hillary's State Department correspondence and emails on Huma Abedin's Yahoo account. Anybody who had the username or password of Huma Abedin's account could read Hillary Clinton's classified emails. Complete violation of the law. Of course, Comey said, well, Hillary did misuse documents, but she didn't mean to. Well, I'm sorry, the law has nothing to do with intent. People have gone to prison for a long time because they misused classified documents, whether or not they intended to commit a crime. There's no intent in the statute. Thank you, James Comey. Okay, so this fusion cell put together secretly by Brennan, the director of the CIA, during the 2016 campaign, produced a series of papers for the White House on Russian interference 2016 presidential election. Agenda for the secret interagency task force meetings during summer and fall of 2016 were sent in envelopes to FBI Director James Comey, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who again gave Hillary Clinton a pass, and National Security Advisor Susan Rice, who was one of the chief co-conspirators, along with Valerie Jarrett in the White House, going after Trump in 2016. A classified 2016 document that Brennan had hand-delivered to Obama in a secret sealed envelope contained information from someone Brennan described only as, quote, a source close to Putin. The informant is believed to have been a Russian source that Brennan recycled out of the Steel Dossier. Gradually, Brennan expanded the circle within the Obama administration to include Vice President Joe Biden, various cabinet members, including Secretary of State John Kerry, began receiving sealed envelopes disclosing the agenda for the fusion cell meetings. The envelopes containing the agendas were considered so secret that subordinates were not authorized to open the envelopes. Sometimes the agendas were withheld until the invited participants had taken their seats in the White House Situation Room. Okay, so this whole sordid story of the Steel Dossier shows the willingness of anti-Trump officials of the Obama administration at the highest levels of the U.S. intelligence and justice system, with the full knowledge of Obama and the Obama White House and the explicit approval of the Clinton campaign, to use opposition research that was known to be false, the Steel Dossier, to develop the Russian collusion hoax and to spy on the presidential campaign of the opposition party. And Trump, of course, was put down for saying that Obama was spying on him, even though it was true. The dossier, known to be false, was then used by the Obama DOJ to obtain authorization from a sensitive federal court, the FISA court, to conduct covert surveillance on the presidential campaign of the opposing GOP presidential candidate. And that raises serious constitutional issues as well as political and legal concerns. It's called treason. Okay, so what this book demonstrated was that key actions of the FBI and DOJ were promoted the Steel Dossier, despite knowing that its essential claims against Trump were unverified. Evidence that should have resulted in criminal indictments against the Obama operatives had the U.S. intelligence and justice systems been doing their job, not politically, but correctly. These agencies are so corrupt that I think they should be disbanded. And I'm not sure that Bongino and Patel are going to be able to turn the ship around. Chris, I'd like you to get ready and come on and make some comments about this, because I'm getting ready to shift into the economics now. And I've got some important things that people need to hear on the economics. So any comments, Chris, that you'd like to make?
Well, this will be interesting. These documents are likely floating around for a very long time. And all of this comes, again, you mentioned it, perfect timing. Biden, his people released the information about Biden's diagnosis of prostate cancer. Again, this is a few days after about a week or so, or a couple of weeks after the Jake Tapper book comes out. All the interviews in the news cycle. You have the Robert Hur interview tapes released on Friday, and all of this happening at the same time. Now you have that interview with Maria Bartiromo, all of this. So the news media you're going to watch them for a little while, still try to push forth the diagnosis a little bit and use that to minimize coverage of what's really going on around us.
Well, the Steel Dossier is the key here. That was the golden pea shower and all that other nonsense that was in that dossier. When it reached the desks of Brennan and then James Clapper, who was the director of national intelligence, once they lent their credentials to the credibility of the Steel Dossier, as did the FBI, then the globalist-oriented British intelligence elite who were running the Great Britain's High Command Intelligence Group had abundant reasons to believe that U.S. intelligence agents were looking for dirt on Trump. And you had the FBI and its counterintelligence operation beginning to work overseas with British intelligence and also Australian intelligence. So this became an international operation to take down Trump during the first term of the presidency. Okay, so that in January 2016, which is a full year before Trump took office, not only did Brennan have this fusion cell, he created a secret Donald Trump task force in the CIA with the blessing of James Clapper, who was the director of national intelligence. Brennan organized the Donald Trump task force on the premise that Trump was a spy, an asset of Putin running for president of the United States. Task force members, including officials from the FBI and the NSA, were handpicked with no posting of a job. So as a counterintelligence operation, Brennan's task force could recruit foreign intelligence agencies, including MI6 in the UK, as well as the Italian and Australian intelligence agencies. The task force spent CIA money to fund travel overseas and to pay operating assets to set up entrapment schemes of Trump campaign officials, including Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. Out of Brennan's clandestine Donald Trump task force, the Justice Department officially commenced Operation Crossfire Hurricane on July 31, 2016, when the FBI officially opened it as a counterintelligence operation. And then the FBI could send FBI officials overseas on official FBI business to work hand in hand with their CIA, the UK, and Italian and Australian intelligence counterparts, recruited into the international Stop Trump movement. Okay, so this is, I think, treasonous activity, because a duly elected president of the United States was attempted to be overthrown by lies. And the people here involved, Brennan, Clapper, Hillary, Obama, they all knew it was lies. And yet they did it. I think it's one of the darkest chapters in American history, and it was only made darker by Biden's incompetence being hidden by his wife, Jill. Reminds me of Woodrow Wilson having a stroke after he returned from Paris at the end of the Versailles peace negotiations. At the end of World War I, he had a stroke, and his wife covered it up and ran the country. Question is, who was running the country under the Biden administration? It was probably different people running agencies that made policy. It was probably Obama to some extent, certainly Brennan to some extent, the deep state, the CIA running the country, and lying, rigging our elections, and opening the border to TD Bank and others to engage in the drug and child sex trades with Pope Francis and the Vatican in order to steal children from their parents, destroy their innocence with putting them into sex slavery, one of the most horrendous crimes you can imagine. And Satan ruled the Democratic Party. These people need to go to hell. But before that, let's charge them with treason. Let's have some justice here and have this never happen again in the United States of America. These people deserve to go to hell. but not until some of them are hanged. And this is not weaponizing the FBI or the Department of Justice. This is going after the criminals and the traitors who ran the United States under the Obama administration and furthered it into the Biden administration, promoting war with the State Department in Ukraine and arming, thank you, John Kerry, Iran with a deal and boatloads and airplanes full of cash. The United States has been tarnished by these people. And the destruction of the Democratic Party can't happen fast enough to satisfy me. Or let's go to the economy, because the Democrats have also managed to wreck the economy. We had Moody's over the weekend. Moody's downgraded the United States again. And so the United States downgrade is, I think, very frightening, because it's pointing out that our debt is out of control. I watched some videos of this over the weekend, and it's clear that the United States debt, now we have about 30% of our tax revenues going just to pay the interest on the national debt. We're far out of control because we have allowed the Democrats just to spend money we don't have. And as a consequence, the United States is no longer economically stable. Okay, so the downgrade is going to mean that our bonds are going to get more expensive in order to fund the debt, that we're going to have the debt drag on our economy. I mean, I think we're going to have to view the dollar as more risky than cryptocurrency, because at least cryptocurrency, it can attempt to limit the supply of it. But here, you let the Democrats go, and we have this bill that's coming through Congress. Even the Rhino Republicans want to spend. And how many in our Congresses are billionaires, millionaires? Because they're criminals. They take bribes. It doesn't take very much to buy them. I mean, you have Pocahontas being worth $60 or $70 million. And, it's disgraceful. And so Trump is right to start identifying and targeting for primarying Tom Tillis and all the other GOP who are really rhinos, Republican names only, part of the Uni Party, there to enrich themselves, not to do the bidding of the people. Not the people of the United States, maybe the people of China, whomever pays them, but not the United States. Now, gold is still trading over $3,000 an ounce. Today, it's at $3,240 an ounce. And the stock market futures do not look particularly strong today, given the downgrading of the United States. Okay, so we'll see how the market opens here. But, we're now going to get Treasury yields to 5%. Become much more expensive to pay and why are we paying interest on our money? If the modern monetary theory is correct, another democratic complete nonsense, so we're the sovereign nation, so we can always pay our debt by printing more money. Well, we keep printing money and printing money and printing money until it's worthless. And why are we doing it for the Federal Reserve, to whom we have to pay interest? We just print the money out of the Treasury. If it's fiat, why bother with the Federal Reserve? Federal Reserve is a con job. It's owned by private banks. We don't need to be paying interest on the money we create through the Treasury. And I have yet to hear anybody explain how that's consistent with modern monetary theory, other than they want to enrich the bankers so they can have more wars and produce more weapons and kill more people. We can't have any more wars, because wars always go thermonuclear and have the potential to go thermonuclear. Trump stepped in and stopped India and Pakistan from fighting. We're seeing major changes. But the point I want to make is that we are out of control with spending, and the dollar has become less stable than cryptocurrency. Okay, so I'm encouraging you to go to CorsiNation.com and to look at Swiss America. I'm imploring you talk to Swiss America about getting a self-directed IRA or 401k. At least get some of your retirement assets into a self-directed IRA where you can buy gold and silver and own it. Swiss America has a program where they will set up for you a depository in Delaware to hold your gold and silver. You'll get a insurance policy from Lloyd's of London that the gold and silver are really there. You really own it. And you'll have an asset which appreciates in value. I think we're going to see gold possibly going to $4,000 an ounce. When I started talking to you about this, gold was at $1,800 an ounce. You'd have doubled your money had you listened to me. But no. You'd rather stay with your mutual funds and say, oh, we can always go into bond mutual funds. Well, with the bonds now having to pay greater yield to sell them, even the bond funds are going to tank. And if you don't think that the stock market can lose 5,000 points in a day, well, good. Just stay with your beliefs and we'll see what happens. But the stock market, I think, could be trading at 35,000 before we get out of this financial problem. And it's going to take Trump a lot of doing to figure out a solution because there isn't an easy one. Okay, I think there are some, but they're not easy. And the world is going to gold backing. We're just in fiat land saying we've got the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, it's just been downgraded. We're just headed into a situation where the world economic forces are realizing that the United States might actually default on our national debt. Maybe not literally, but by printing more worthless money to pay off the interest on the debt and the principal on the debt, which it's not diminishing already. It's increasing rapidly at a greater rate. We're approaching $34 trillion in national debt. It's a frightening situation. And it'd be wise to get into some gold and silver. If you act now and establish an account with Swiss America, you can buy up to 250 of these Walking Liberty half dollars, which are about 99% silver at essentially the cost of them in silver. It's a loss leader for Swiss America. Okay, there's lots of good information here that you can download free on the Swiss America account. And also, take a look, if you like the show, take a look at our sponsors. Swiss America is supplemented here by My Vital C. And this carbon 60 in olive oil, I've been taking every day for about 4 or 5 years now. And I can attest to you that it does have anti-aging effects. It's an antioxidant. I swear by it. I think it's important for maintaining mental acuity, sleeping better. There's also products for hair and for skin, which have worked for me, and cats and dogs. I've witnessed our pets loving My Vital C for cats and dogs. So, I wrote a book here, both with Swiss America, and I'm going to give you the number for Swiss America in a minute, but also with My Vital C. The book of My Vital C is Live Longer and Better. Chris is showing you all the offerings here on My Vital C. You can get these on the CorsiNation.com website. There's the book, Live Longer and Better. I wrote it with Chris Burries, who is the chief scientist and one of the people who helped the Rice University scientists who run a Pulitzer Prize discovering carbon-60. It's a remarkable molecule. It's got a nucleus and up 60 carbon atoms in a cage structure like a soccer ball. These are called fullerenes after Buckminster Fuller. They're very strong, and they are soluble for human consumption, processed correctly, and dissolved in olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado oil. And all three are available in My Vital C. Okay, last story. Vance met with Zelenskyy in Rome prior to the fact that today Trump is planning to call both Putin and Zelenskyy to get this war in Ukraine ended. And I think Zelenskyy ought to be told he's not getting any more money. If we don't fund Zelenskyy and provide him weapons, he's got to quit fighting. Zelenskyy, his wife went on a $1 million jewelry buying expedition, and he's rumored to have a mansion in the United States now. They can join Obama. Maybe they have their accompanying mansions on Martha's Vineyard. Wouldn't that be lovely? And Michelle Obama is now claiming that she's an expert and people are seeking her advice because, after all, she gives speeches and she's written books. Her podcast bombed. It was so bad, I think I guess it failed to draw an audience. At any rate, the Obamas are about to be considered one of the biggest blights on American history. 2008, I wrote the book Abomination. I was saying they were going to be an abomination. I correctly predicted that after Obama, race relationships in the United States would deteriorate, which they have. It's been Trump who brought them back. I think Trump is the greatest hope we have for peace. I think it was a reprieve from God that we didn't have Kamala Harris elected. She certainly would have destroyed America and thrown us into a nuclear war. The Bidens were headed that way very quickly, and we still have to work to prevent nuclear war with all the conflicts going on, with Iran developing nuclear weapons, and with Macron. And by the way, I'm confident that was cocaine on the desk that Macron tried to snatch and hide. Macron, of course, married to a man, an older man, which is generally known in Europe, but not in the United States. These people are corrupt. And we're going to find out more about their corruption. It's going to be appalling. Finally, take a look at Silicon Satan, the novel by Craig Lund. We're featuring it on Corsi Nation. There's a lot Craig is doing, including giving you segments from his forthcoming new book on the evil, the satanic evil at the heart of Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and our elites, including the Democratic Party and many in the Republican Party, unfortunately. Okay, and that's also accompanied by Mike McCormick. I'm featuring the two books, Mike McCormick's book, An Almost Insurmountable Evil, in which he's looking at Pope Francis's rule and how much they made deals with China, the Chinese government, to suppress religion in China. It's disgraceful. And to support pedophilia and fentanyl trade, generated plenty of money for Act Blue. There'll be much more on this coming out in future weeks. And I'll be doing more writing and publishing on AmericanThinker.com, where I tend to publish my articles these days. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. It's Dr. Jerome Corsi today. It's Monday, May 19th, 2025. I encourage everybody in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, let's get on our knees and ask God's forgiveness for letting things get here to this state of immorality and evil. God will certainly hear our prayer and heal our land if enough of us join together and beseeching God to forgive us. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us here on CorsiNation.com. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.